Okay. All right. And that should now kick in. All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Tony Parker, also known as Tony the Tarot Guy, with a new friend, Mitchell Osborn, who is a practicing psychic and all kinds of very interesting things that we've been discovering. And he's been really gracious enough to be willing to come on our little broadcast, which is awesome. And so what I'm just going to do is ask Mitch to just start at the beginning. Once upon a time, there he was in a little log cabin, right? So did you have to walk barefoot in the snow to school every morning? Yeah.
No, because I was born in Central Florida, so there really was no snow here.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, my name is Mitchell Osborn. I am a native Floridian. I still live in Central Florida. I live very close to the Kingdom of the Mouse.
Okay.
But I was born and raised in Winter Haven, so it was a pretty small town. It's Polk County, so it is what it sounds like, kind of a little rednecky part of the world.
Uh-huh.
But you know, I'm a middle child. I'm a Pisces sun sign. My ascending is Leo, hence the hair, hence the if need be, I don't mind taking control. And then I'm a Capricorn moon, so people don't realize it, but I'm really good with numbers and money.
Ah.
They don't always see that part. They just think I'm a silly person. But yeah, I was that kid. People always ask me, when did you know you were psychic and all that stuff.
That's always a good question. Did you ever have any invisible friends? I mean, a real spirit friend or a spirit guide?
I'll be honest. I had a great imagination, and I like to think that my imagination was part of my spirit world. But I was the kid who on Sunday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm a hyperactive kid. Everybody else is asleep. And I'm the one like standing in my parents' bed, and my mom opens her eye and she says, "Go back to bed." So I would go into the living room. I would pull out, my mom was a big bridge player. She played a lot of cards. So I would pull out her cards, and I remember shuffling her cards, and I would hold it up to my head, and I would try to first guess the color, because it was either red or black. So that was 50-50 chance. And then I would try to guess the suit. Was it diamonds, hearts, clubs?
So you were already playing psychic experiments, but not.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting, but it wasn't like you weren't seeing or having visions or anything, were you? Or seeing spirits or anything?
No, I was very good with reading people's energy.
Okay.
And that's still one of my main things. I mean, and now, I'm not a big objective clairvoyant, so I see more subjectively in my head.
Okay.
And I always tell people, I say, when you hear the big names, whatever they are, Tyler, Teresa, John, most of them don't see the spirit walking through the room.
Right.
They just see it in their head.
They feel it.
What they say is, "Oh, I'm seeing a spirit walking across the room." And believe me, I've been in their workshops, and they've all said the same thing. They said most of the time it's just subjectively in my head.
Right.
Because people are thinking, "Oh, they come to you at night." For me, it's more of, I used to, when I lived alone, I would be laying in bed, I'd turn the lights off, and all the shadows started doing the morphing thing. And I would say out loud, "Don't come to me at midnight when I'm by myself. Come to me during the day." But then growing up, somewhat of a conservative family, but not really a church-going conservative Christian family, but beliefs of that. But we were allowed to talk about dreams. So dreams was kind of the only thing I could talk about growing up. And my mom was a very, very prophetic dreamer.
Okay.
And she and I would always share the dreams.
So there was a kind of an inherited gift.
Yes. And this, you'll appreciate this. At like 35 years old, my grandfather, who I only vaguely knew once a year, he came into town because he was divorced from my grandmother. We got to meet him at his hotel and swim in the pool. And he would give us $5. So that's what I knew about my grandfather. But at 35 years old, my mom says, "Oh yeah, that's your grandfather's book." And I was like, what are you talking about? Book? I pulled it out. My grandfather was a metaphysical minister, and I never knew it. So you talk about inherited gifts. This is my mom's.
Now, is that the same as a charismatic, or I'm not all that up on the different threads of.
So back in 1960 and 70s,
Uh-huh.
'cause this is when this would have been happening. He was probably part of like what we would call the Spiritualist National Union or the Spiritualist Church, because he pretty much believed in things very different than the traditional churches. So I don't fully know what he was, and I've tried to research. So if anybody listening to this video has ever heard of a man named Reverend William Legant,
Well, we'll have to Google him right now. Is he
oh,
on Wiki?
trust me,
Is he on
trust
Wiki?
me. I've looked for him. I've ordered little pamphlets that he wrote.
Really?
Yeah, from online. But he met my step grandmother Sonia, who was a Russian woman. He met her at a metaphysical conference, and that's where the demise of my grandfather and grandmother's relationship happened. But also, my middle name is William, which I'm named after him.
Aha.
So yeah, you talk about from my grandfather to my mother to me, you know, and my dad even was going to be like an Episcopal priest. So there's a lot of like, you know,
There's a lot of spiritual floating around.
oh yeah,
A
and
lot of seeking. Yeah.
one time I'm sitting in a circle with Elizabeth Palin, who's a pretty famous medium that lives here in Florida from England. And she looks over at me and she literally went like this. She goes, "Oh God, you've been a priest and a monk so many times, I can't even count." And I remember just looking at her going, "I believe you. I believe you."
That's funny. That's funny.
And in one of my first hypnotherapy past life regressions, I was on the island of Atlantis, and I was in charge of collecting the crystals that wormed their way up from the ocean. And it was a very interesting one for me because it was so vivid, and I was so even secretive at the time of hypnotherapy because I knew what I was seeing, but I didn't even want to tell my hypnotherapist what I was seeing.
Right.
Because I felt I wasn't supposed to share the information. So yeah, so it was a pretty wild experience. So I got some spiritual.
So which came? I'm curious because I know you're also a hypnotherapist and you combine it with your psychic abilities. Did one come from the other? Which one happened first for you? Which path or stream kind of occurred first?
So in 1999, just everything shifted. It's when I finally, at 33 years old, came out of the closet. It's when books at Barnes & Noble started literally calling my name to come read them. One of the first books I ever grabbed was Deborah Lynn Katz, You Are Psychic. So from 1999 of December, literally, you know, how many, 18 years ago now, I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And I lived in Polk County. So I was this little town, quietly reading in my apartment by myself, still a little nervous that I was reading this because at that time, I was part of a church, a very conservative church, the Nazarene Church. And then when I got to Orlando, finally moved in with my partner of 11 years now, I started taking classes in 2007. And by late 2008, I started, reading tarot cards professionally at Universal Studios Orlando. They actually have tarot card readers there. It was kind of neat.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so I moved into with tarot cards, did pendulum, did tea leaf readings. So then a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I finally went through hypnotherapy training with Dick Sutphin, and then finally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's a man who I really respect. By the way, you're scoring on all my little check. You know, and Dick Sutphin is definitely one of the best hypnotherapists and teachers around.
Yes.
You know? And he does, and his inductions are, you know.
Oh my gosh! So probably about 2009, I took a remote viewing class with him in Orlando.
Okay.
I always kept him on my radar. And
now we're talking remote viewing or actual OBEs as well, or more like remote view?
Remote viewing. This is just plain remote viewing.
Oh,
okay. It was a one-time class of remote viewing. And just loved him and his personality and his energy. And then when in 2015, when he came back to Orlando to teach the class, it was a week-long 50-hour course, I was like, I have to do it. And at the time, his wife, Roberta, said this was his final class. And I kept feeling like I needed to do it. Since then, he's done one or two more, which I'm thrilled. But that was the door opening for me because he's the king of past life regression. The books he's written are amazing. You know, he's written books about, you know, the spiritual laws and, you know, karma. So
that really opened some doors for you, I guess.
Oh yeah. And like I said, he's like you said, he's been doing this before it was cool. He's been doing it for like 40 years.
Right. Oh no, like I said, you mentioned his name. I said, okay, yeah, you pass. But that's amazing. And how? And I'm curious. And at what point did so the cards kind of came in at the reading tarot as well? How do you amalgamate that? That's fascinating. I'm just curious how. I mean, we
So
actually tonight. I see right now. I've got Ileana and Gabby, who are both readers, tarot cartomancers or readers or
yeah.
psychics. So we could talk shop. We're allowed to talk grown up talk now. Go.
So in on my wedding day, because I got married in 2000. Oh my gosh, what year is this? In 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So no, 2016, right? 2016, I got married. Yes. On January 25th, Ruth Ann and Wald Amberstone from the Reader Studio called me
Okay.
and said, would you present next year at Reader Studio, meaning this past year, 2017? And I was like, of course I will. And then I was like, oh my God, what did I say yes to? Now I have to figure out what I'm going to present on that's new, that nobody else has done. That,
I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
like you said, I started having the moment of, I'm going to be on stage and there's going to be Rachel Pollack in the audience. There's going to be Mary Kay Greer. There's going to be Sasha Graham. There's going to be all these people looking at me going, teach me something, Mitch.
Well,
So,
just for everybody out there, the Reader's Studio is like the World Series for tarot psychics and readers and healers, and only the best of the best get either invited to participate and definitely to present. So I'm impressed, Mitch. Go ahead.
well, I remember being on stage and I remember going, I don't know why Ruth Ann and Walt invited me here. I don't have a book. I don't have anything. I said, but because they saw something in me, I know them well enough to know they saw something important.
Right.
And I remember the day before I was to present, I went to my YouTube channel and I looked up the accumulation of how many minutes my videos have been watched over the last like 5 or 6 years. So that was my claim to fame. I said, as of right now, I've had over 1.2 million minutes of videos watched. So that was my claim
That's
to fame.
pretty good. That's good enough for me, you know.
And it was quantity because I was posting every single day.
Uh-huh.
But I like to think it was quality as well.
Right.
So I once they asked me to be on the main stage, I thought, you know what? I don't know what I trusted Spirit. And I said, you know what, Spirit, I've got a year. And I allowed it to unfold, which is not my normal thing. I normally like to know when I say yes to something, I need to know everything that I'm going to do, little box. And I just kept allowing Spirit to guide me. And I would be in my meditation and they would show me another component. I did a little dry run workshop here in Orlando with some of my Orlando Tarot Tribe people in my meetup. And they gave me a lot of feedback. But basically what I did was, and I did a whole workshop online as well.
Okay.
And basically, I said, okay, everybody, we're going to do just a simple spread. So let's do a simple spread. So we did a 6-card spread, and I created just a simple little spread about, life and things. And then I said, now I want you to write down and share with your people at the table. Now I'm going to take you into a hypnotic state. And I'm going to have you go even deeper.
So you took a whole group into an induction.
150, 140 people.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Into a hypnotic state, and I would have them at one card at a time look at the card and go deeper. And I'll never forget, I would hear people starting to cry, and I would hear some gasps. And then the final thing was we took even deeper journey to reconcile the feelings that were brought up. We would pick a card of, okay, the challenges that I had in the reading, here's, the 5 of Cups represents that challenge, obviously tears and emotion. Now, rather than feeling this way, how would you like to feel? Oh, 7 of Coins, like I have abundance. So I would take them and I would journey them from the old emotion into the new emotion. And Melissa Chinova, one of my friends who wrote the Kitchen Table Tarot book,
right?
She posted, and it was funny because she posted that weekend, she said, in the middle of Mitch's presentation, I had to stop what he was doing and grab my pen and paper. And I'm like, oh my God, was it that bad? And she's like, because at that moment, my writer's block was released.
Oh my gosh.
In 30 minutes, I basically finished my second book. And then she said, and I'm going to dedicate it to Mitch.
Well,
So,
this is classic path work.
oh yeah, it was.
What's the name of that British woman, that aristocrat who originally started taking people through the major arcana as path work? I'm having a senior moment, but this sounds all very similar. But it's brilliant.
And I understand the word pathwork, but I'm not sure who the British woman is. But yeah,
The path work, just for everybody else, the path work is the major arcana. Is like the tree of life, i.e. the Kabbalah, and the way pathwork used to be taught at the Golden Dawn, etc., OTO, Thelema, was that you would go through each path, okay, which is the between the different cards and the different Sapiro, right? Am I pronouncing anybody's Jewish? Sorry. The Sephirot, right? And each path is a spiritual lesson, right? And the visualizing the spiritual lesson, and you would meet a guardian angel, you would meet a guide or whatever. And this is amazing. Good for you. I'm astounded. I'm impressed.
And for me, it came out of my hypnotherapy training, because oftentimes we have emotional blocks and we use stem sentence. You know, rather than feeling this sadness, how would you like to feel? Happy. So that was what I was doing, but then I was transforming those emotions.
And a room full of 150 people, amazing.
And letting them choose their cards of their old emotion to their new emotion. So yeah, it was pretty powerful for me, because I literally, and it's funny because I kept feeling leading up to it like there's a bit more, and I was like a month away, and Spirit was like, hello, the bit more that you're feeling is them.
Right.
They're the final component. The 140 people sitting in front of you, you can't predict who they're going to be at that moment. So that's the final piece that once it's in place, you're going to feel complete.
That's amazing.
That's why I said to you earlier off camera, I was like, it was a moment I'll never forget, because I literally was like in the perfect Zen spiritual high moment on that stage, still human, still nervous, still presenting, you know, still doubting, but trusting. And it was just, I walked off the stage, and that night I laid in bed staring at the ceiling going, oh my God, that was amazing. It was like I watched the sunset and was moved by it. You know, it was like, it wasn't in my control, but I think I was honored by trusting what Spirit had for me and everybody there. So it was really cool.
That sounds like an amazing experience. I would have loved to have been present. But like I said, it reminds me of a woman. She designed a set of tarot cards as well. She had a name like Dame something, you know, she was an English aristocrat, and she had a deck of cards, and it's you know, and it's very rare and very expensive, etc. And her whole thing was doing this visualizations, guided visualizations, going through the you know, the tree of life. And that was her thing. And it sounds, but she used a kind of a hypnotic induction.
Wow, yeah.
You know, which was pretty powerful. But anyway, that's all. Well, good for you. Kudos, you know. And now I want to bring us over.
I heard a dog. I heard someone's dog.
Yeah, I heard somebody's dog. I was just going to say, and we were talking earlier about Mitch's affinity with animals. And is it healing or counseling or what? Let's get into that. And I want to see all the cats and dogs. Who's got a cat or a dog? Come on, let's see them. There we go. Come on, let's all see the cat people. Okay, there we are. Good. All the cat. You got fans here, Mitch. There you go. You've got. They're bringing their cats and their dogs.
I don't know if Norva. Everybody else, I think, has an animal in their house.
Right. So my cat met Mitch's cat. So look at that. Oh.
Is that a little Chihuahua or a mix? Yeah. Is it Chihuahua?
She's muted. Hold on.
Okay, cool. Yay. That's why I was doing the S sign for sign language.
Right.
Yeah, she's a pure Chihuahua.
Oh my gosh.
She's 4 pounds. 4 pounds. She's 8 years old.
We had a 4-pound named Zuzu that lived with us hi, sweetheart. That lived for us.
Oh, look, all your little animal fans here. They got the dogs. So you've got your hands full now, Mitch.
Her name is Pip.
That's great. And Christy, what's your doggy's name?
Who is that?
Christy?
Oh, her name is Roxy.
Roxy. And Ileana had a mystery cat that appeared and stayed, what, came to dinner and stayed and hasn't left? Has it got a name yet?
Well, my son calls it Fluffy, so we're going with that. But he, yeah, I keep putting him out and he comes back.
Yay, I love it.
A beautiful black cat. Very mysterious, beautiful black cat. Okay, so you're on, Mitch. We're on to animals.
So in my home,
Come on,
I
baby.
have a 13-year-old Pomeranian named Tiffany. She was a rescue at 9 years old, a stray on the street. She had a chip. She's a full-blooded Pomeranian, had a chip, but nobody claimed her. And we brought her home. And then we have a 16-year-old going on 17-year-old little dachshund named Sheldon. He's about 12 pounds, so he's a tiny little boy. He's the smallest male dachshund I've ever seen. And he's in great shape. He's good. He just eats, sleeps, and poops. And then we have this gorgeous flame point Himalayan named Sebastian in the house that I think he's about 10 because he walked up into my brother and sister-in-law's house and just said, I'm home. And one day I was over there and he comes walking out of his cage that he kind of stayed in. And I literally heard in my ear, oh, thank God you're here. It's about time. And I was like, no. I'm not the one that brings him home. That's my husband. But the next 4 days later, I had to go back and get him because my husband was going to kill me if I didn't bring him home. And then this is a beautiful story. And I'll tell you about Bartolomeo, who he was here. He left. Maybe he'll come back if I'm talking about him. But Bartolomeo is this 20-pound Egyptian Mao-looking thing that's not overweight. He's just a big cat.
Right.
And my husband, Fabian, had a friend who needed to find a home for this cat because it was her daughter's and she was going off to college and they just didn't have room and there was a crazy dog in the house. So we brought Bartolomeo home on a Sunday night, January 6th. Bart's name at the time was Guido. And my husband is from Argentina, so he was like, Guido, what's that name? So you're from New York, you know what Guido is.
Guido's from Brooklyn, right? Bensonhurst, right?
So once I explained what a Guido was, he was like, I don't know if I like that. So on Sunday night, we brought Bartolomeo home. On Tuesday, I started connecting with him again. And I was like, I don't think he wants to be called Guido. And I kept hearing Bartholomew, which is the biblical name. But so I go to type in Facebook and put a picture up there and say, hey, everybody, this is our new cat. His name was Guido, but we're going to call him Bartholomew. But as I typed Bartholomew, I got the red line from my iPhone saying, that's not correct spelling. So me being a little type A, I was like, I need to spell it correctly. So I started typing real slow to see if it would recommend Bartholomew. Well, it recommended Bartolomeo. And I thought, that's like the Italian Spanish version of Bartholomew. So I said, this is the Italian version of Bartolomeo. And so that night I told Fabian, he's like, I really like that name. Well, the next morning, Fabian is reading the obituaries. I don't know why, but he's like, ooh, a guy just named Bartolomeo just died. Do you think that's a sign?
Whoa.
And I said, yes, it is. Wait a minute, it gets better. So then the next day, I'm talking to my friend Jamie, who we both had a psychic blog talk radio show that we did for like 3 years on Sunday night called Cosmic Caffeine. And Jamie goes, Mitch, do you not remember the guy who I was going to the hospital and laying hands on and doing healing? I said, yeah, his name was Frank. She goes, no, it was Frank Bartolomeo.
Oh my gosh.
So his last name was Bartolomeo. Now, Frank did make it through the holidays. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, but he died on January the 6th. The same day we brought Guido home, now asking to be called Bartolomeo.
Amazing. Now when you're talking laying hands, are you doing like Reiki or just channeling or what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jamie did her own thing. She wouldn't call it anything.
Okay.
She would say it's like Reiki. But it was very interesting because she physically got him through the holidays. Like tumors disappeared. The doctors used the word miracle, but he did eventually pass away. And this is all part of our blog talk, so I'm not divulging any privacy of client stuff because it was all on the radio. Because then we meet Frank Bartolomeo's wife, who's still alive, Alice. Now, Alice has connected with my husband about pottery. So
It's
she's
just
been,
circles of connecting
oh my
circles.
gosh, it has been amazing,
Hmm.
amazing connection. So yeah, so
So,
it was a
so
beautiful.
how? What kind of channeling or connecting or treating or healing it with animals? Because you got your fans here, all your animal fans here. Katie, do you have an animal, a pet?
Oh my gosh, is that Katie Quinn from
Yeah,
Orlando area?
Katie, do you know Mitch? Katie's one of my clients. I know
Okay,
her,
maybe not.
but could be. Katie, can you hear
I'm not.
us?
Yes, I can, but I'm not from Orlando.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Do you have your? We've got well. Mitch is also an animal channeler and communicator and healer, and we all brought our little animals up. Do you have an animal? Do you have a pet, a cat, or a friend, or whatever? The doggy?
Nope. No, I'm here in my apartment by myself. No animals.
Oh, well, that's okay. Anyway, because everybody's brought their dogs and cats up.
Well, and I got to tell you, if I lived by myself, I would not have an animal. I wouldn't. And here's the reason why, Katie, or for everybody listening, is I know my life, I know my lifestyle, and I live outside of my house so much that when I come home, it's my sanctuary. But because I'm with my partner and husband now of 11 years, that we share this environment, it is a no-brainer for me to have animals in the household. And he's a big animal advocate. But I'll never forget when I first met him and I met some of his animals. I was at doing a psychic workshop teaching probably tarot cards at the time. And I remember saying to one of my friends, I said, oh God, one day my business card is going to say pet psychic. I was making a joke and I was like, oh, be careful what you say. Be careful
Careful
what
what
you
you
say.
ask for, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, the work that I do is I use the term animal communication. And a lot of times I get a lot of people, emailing me on Facebook, my pet's missing. And I help in finding them.
Hmm.
And it's not so much about locating them and recovering them. It's more about changing the energy within the home that most likely got the cat, the dog, or the animal moving out. Because I believe in the work that I do is the animals are sentient beings. They are here to teach us something. They mirror what's going on in our lives, the good, the bad, the ugly, and they also model what they want us to do and to achieve. So if all of a sudden one of your dogs was like the love of your life and just moving, and you're a workaholic, and all of a sudden your dog starts just chilling out and settling down, it may be modeling the behavior that you need to rest, you need to chill. But also I've seen animals that are peeing everywhere all over the house.
Ooh.
I say to the human, so what's going on in your life? Because
Right.
it usually comes back. Because let's face it, the animals, they kind of know how to exist. They live very well in the moment. We human in our energies will often go out to them, and they're here to show us lessons. And the one way that I tell people this for sure is a lot of times they'll have an animal, it'll have some issues. That animal may pass away. They get another animal, and all of a sudden that animal starts having some of the same issues. And I'll say that's because the lesson they were trying to get you to learn, you didn't get.
Well, if they're both having the same issue,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
the common factor. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been powerful. Some of my mentors, Danielle McKinnon, who's an amazing animal communicator, psychic, and medium. I work with her philosophy as well as Carol Gurney is another one, and even Linda Tellington Jones. Those are some of the big animal communicators that have been around for a long time, and a lot of people don't know about them. Do you want me to repeat that?
Go ahead. Yeah, you went past.
I have a pen and paper. Carol Gurney,
Right.
Danielle McKinnon, and Linda Tellington Jones. Linda Tellington Jones was the horse lady, so
Right.
that was her big thing, horses. Carol Gurney was like cats and dogs. But yeah, so when I work with them, almost the animal usually gets the human to me, and by the time our session is over, we're working with the human.
That's beautiful.
I usually say something like, "Now you see what this animal did for you?
Right.
It went through hell just to get you to me, to shine a light on the real issue, which is your problem with not feeling worthy, your problem with not feeling deserving, your problem of not believing that you are worthy of love, or that you have not set clear boundaries, or you don't know how to let go." And a lot of times when the lessons are learned, man, I tell you, the issues clear up like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really been powerful, because it still blows my mind when I'm working with the animals.
Absolutely. Well, again, as you say, they're much more connected than we are, and they're etc. Now, you were starting to talk about tarot cards. Do you still use cards for readings, or?
Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
they are my heart.
Okay.
I actually, when I was hard and heavy doing mediumship and studying it about 8 or 9 years ago, one of my teachers, she's an amazing woman, great teacher, great psychic and medium, but she was part of the spiritualist church, and her philosophy was a little more, you don't need cards, they're a crutch for you. Well, when it comes to mediumship and animal communication, I don't use cards at all. I just naturally put them down. But if you're my client and we're talking about the here and now, your life, relationship, health, I've got my cards in hand.
Okay.
And they've just been such a connection for me.
Mhm.
But I know when to put them down and just kind of connect to spirit. But yeah, they're very, very powerful for me.
Mhm. What kind of everybody always asks this question, but since we're on video, what decks do you use, or what deck is your favorite street deck or working deck?
So my favorite creator is Ciro Marchetti, and the deck that I use on a regular basis is Legacy of the Divine Tarot, which is pulled the Temperance card.
There you go.
So yeah, and then I have his new deck, the Tarot Decoratif. He's actually down in South Florida, and the Tarot Grand Lux, which is something he just released. I and a couple other tarot card readers got to go to his house for dinner, and we got to test drive the new deck before the public got to get it.
Oh, that's great.
So I mean, you know what? I could meet, like rock stars and movie stars, and I would not be blown away. But meeting the person that you use his deck for every day for the last 8 years, it was a very surreal moment for me.
Well, that's what I always tell my friends and colleagues. If you're, the best thing you can do for yourself is to either join or start a group of other practitioners and healers, because we are a community, and we draw from each other, we support each other. Christy's a member of our little Rhinebeck group, okay, and where we were talking about Sasha Graham and Rachel Pollack and Robert, which from another circle, right? But that's our little. But again, I just say, for anybody out there in Facebook land, the smartest thing you can do is to join a tarot or psychic or readers meetup, because then you have a sense of community. I think a lot of psychics and healers, they isolate, and they kind of think they're the only one in town, and of course, as you say, in some parts of our country, unfortunately, there's a lot of negative energy against us, from a certain segment of the community. I won't say anything else. But it's good to know you're not the only one in town, and that there are other people who feel like you, think like you. And again, as you said, this cross fertilization of people designing decks, or and just being able to talk shop, right?
Yep.
And just have friends who are your own tribe,
And if there isn't a meetup near you, create one. That's what I did.
Good for you. Well, that's excellent. That's good. And how does your meetup? Is it like once a month, or just whenever, or what?
Yep, we are meeting right now once a month. We meet at an Einstein Bagel that has like a private little conference room. I have to make sure I get my name on the list before the knitters and crocheting group gets there. But we meet typically on a Saturday or Sunday for 2 hours.
Right.
And it's so funny because I started I came home from Reader Studio 2016. So it's been about 17 months, and we're up to about 240 people. I average about 12 to 15 showing up each time.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been really good. And in the beginning, I don't charge for the meetup, and it's a little fellowship. I do facilitate, and I do have like a lesson kind of plan. But in the beginning, I was just coming up with my own lessons. And finally, one day, I grabbed Mary Kay Greer's book, 21 Ways to Read the Tarot.
Right.
And I pulled it out for one specific lesson. And then finally, I did the whole, smacking my head. Why am I trying to reinvent this wheel? So now we're just working one step at a time through her book.
Awesome.
And this past Sunday, we did metaphor. So how tarot and metaphor, and it can be used as a metaphor for your life. And we work through, and I got every week there's always someone who's like, can I borrow a deck, because I don't even own a deck. So I love the fact that I'm getting people who've never even touched a deck before coming into the group. So
That's
it's
brilliant.
been a lot of fun.
That's great. No, again, absolutely great idea. If you don't have one in your area, start one, and all you need is a coffee shop, or a bookstore.
Yep. And mine's the Orlando Tarot Tribe. So if
there
you're
you go.
ever in Orlando,
Go on, plug it. And what is there a date, or it's on your website anyway, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, let's get back to the cards, because I just segued into that because I thought it was really great that you really have a strong sense of community and fellowship, which is great. But back to the cards. So when you give a reading, is there any specific style or manner or spread that you favor?
No. Now, if you come into my home office or we're meeting online and I'm doing a reading, I do what I call, improvise. I typically would throw 5 cards down, but then I just work with the cards and connect with spirit. What's next? They might say something. I'll say, well, let me pull 3 cards for that.
Mm-hmm.
But on my website, we talked about this earlier, I have a list of spreads, which most of them I've either created or pulled out of, Sasha Graham's book. And then if you buy that, then I stick specifically to the spread, which I deliver back. But I love to do the freestyle kind of thing, because for me, I'm an improviser. We talked about this earlier too. My degree's in theater.
Right.
And I actually owned an improv theater for 10 years in Winter Haven, where every Friday night we did, the same style as Whose Line Is It Anyway theater. So I'm very much ready to go with the flow. You ask me a question, I'm connected to spirit. So a lot of times my clients asking me a question and I'm just listening for the answer already.
Okay.
And then letting it come back out. So almost even channeling as you will.
But you also see yourself as a kind of a healer and a counselor and a coach as well, because I see a sense there's a kind of healing you're not just there to read the cards and say good night, thank you, goodbye.
Yeah. Well, and I love the word coach, because my understanding of a coach is someone who believes that the person sitting in front of them actually has all the answers and has the ability to achieve whatever they come there for.
Mm-hmm.
The coach just asks the right question or guides them down the right path. The coach does not go out on the football field and throw the ball or run the pass or whatever. I'm using sports analogies, which I don't even know what I'm saying. But the coach doesn't hit the ball. The coach is on the sideline going, you can do it. Maybe try this. What if you did this way? So that's why I love the coaching aspect, because I people come to me, and I'm on several different, online, reading sites, and you probably know as well as I do, 95% of the time, the questions are, I just met a guy last night. When's he going to call me back?
Right.
Love. When is he? And I don't mind those, but ultimately I'm saying, well, in the cards, I see this, and this. I said, but I tell you, I can tell that he feels your energy. And for him, your energy feels desperate. Now, do you think you're being desperate? Because I feel like he's feeling you're desperate. So would you want someone desperate clawing after you? And they're like, no, I wouldn't. I said, so open up your heart and allow him to come to you. Allow her to come to you. Rather than just predicting their future, I'm trying to coach them to what I would call a higher vibration. My mantra is, I'm navigating you to a higher vibration.
That sounds wonderful. That's brilliant.
That's my goal. And with the cards there, because a lot of times if I'm just staring at you and we're doing a reading, that's weird for people. But if we're both looking down at the cards, it often will take a little bit of the focus off of how vulnerable they might feel and how weird this stranger is staring them in the eyes. Because I have no problem looking you in the eye and talking to you. But if we're both looking down, it kind of eases their
so you're about some form of self-empowerment and self-actualization, to use some $5 words, rather than just being an audience or a victim or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
And that probably comes, well, I know it comes from, for 30 years, I've been in the fitness industry. I've been a personal trainer. I'm a group fitness instructor. I currently teach body step. I taught body flow. I taught body pump, yoga, Pilates. I've done all that. So that's the coach in me coming out, knowing that they've got that in them. But yeah, and I do predict. I mean, if they ask me, I'll say what I see, but I also follow up with, listen, more than ever, our world is fluid. And what I see as the most possible and likely outcome for you can change in a heartbeat because we're not so thick and dense anymore.
The universe is changing every second.
Yeah, and all you have to do is shift your goal and your intention, you know, and then, you know, because I'll say, here's what I see, and they're like, ooh, I like that. I said, but what? What if there's something even better than that? Well, how could that be? I said, well, I don't know, but Source has got maybe something better for you. So let's not limit the.
Well, that's exactly. Sometimes what we want isn't necessarily what's best for us, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And they may want this one person in as their love and life, their relationship, but there actually could be someone far greater for them and more important in their life out there.
Well, that's the whole point about, you know, talking about you know, being a magician in your own life is that sense of empowerment, but also understanding that there, you know, the universe is the source, not just your will or your desire.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. I mean, Mitch, we could go on for hours, but I, you know, because there's so many common points here. I just wanted to ask, is there anybody in the room who's got some questions? Because I know we got a couple of fellow practitioners in. Do any of you guys have a question for Mitch? Or is there anybody in tonight who'd like to get a reading from Mitch?
What? I'm going to do a reading? Tony's like, well, you told me you would. Yeah, of course I will.
No, but I mean, or questions. I mean, I'm trying to get the people to. So, I mean, if you have a question you'd like to ask, I mean, Mitch has got a wealth of experience. He's got some very interesting points that he's made tonight. Also, he's got a lot of experience. So, you guys got any questions about, you know, shall we say, shop business, being a practitioner or a healer or a reader? Also, if anybody wants a reading, who would like a little reading from Mitch?
I do.
Okay, there you go. You got Ileana. Go ahead, Ileana.
I want to do like a spiritual reading, like maybe a message reading or something like that.
Okay. From anyone or anything specific?
Maybe my brother.
Okay. So is your brother in spirit?
Yeah.
So before you said that, and the reason why I said anything specific, because I immediately saw, it's interesting because I'm seeing, like, it's so funny because it's this very delicate, beautiful white angel. So I don't know if you're more connected to the angel realm. Do you work with angels?
Well, I just like had your 1999 moment. Like, I'm like, okay, this is me. So I'm just starting out.
Oh,
but yes, I do have a strong connection with them.
Okay, good, because I don't necessarily work directly with angels on a regular basis. So when they come in, it's usually for the other person. But it's very interesting because this angel is very thin, very beautiful, and it's very interesting because it's like they're oh my gosh, it's so funny because it's funny because I'm trying to communicate their words. It's like they're about their appearance, they're about their facade. But it's not only their facade, and this is, I believe, a message for you about who you are. It's like, and I'm looking at you and your gorgeous, beautiful eyes and hair. But the thing is you're not only physically beautiful, you're inside as well. So I don't know if you've doubted that, but this energy is like, you need to realize that, you know, you've been given a gift of appearance as well as what's inside your heart. So don't doubt that. This and your brother energy. Why am I seeing like a fast car? Was that his passing with car? Did he like fast cars? Because I'm seeing
he was always getting in wrecks. Yeah, he had a addiction problem.
Did he have a red one? Because I'm seeing like they're showing me like a red Mustang, but I don't know if it
it was a red Corvette, and they used to cause a life to get him out. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But he lived that time. He died at a bus stop actually.
So and I'll tell you. His energy, it's kind of, he's kind of a sarcastic person. So I don't know if he was sarcastic in life, because he's literally going, I would not change a thing. I lived my life on the edge.
Yeah.
Do you have another brother? Is there like a younger one too? Because I'm seeing like somebody else.
I've got two boys. I don't have, but they are, my brother was like my son, kind of like, you know, and then. Okay.
Because he's shown me like another one who would be a little bit of a chip off the old block. So is there one of them that's a lot like him in personality?
No, I don't have any other siblings.
But you said you have two children?
Yeah, I think that it's Harlan. My son
Okay.
Harlan, yeah.
Okay, because and it's funny because your brother, he got real serious. He literally went whoa.
It's pretty
Don't
serious.
worry about your kids.
Really?
So don't worry about them like becoming like him or anything like that. He
Okay.
was he didn't have what is it? You know, the thrill seekers who
Yeah.
don't have the fear.
Yeah.
It seems like he didn't have that fear built in him.
No.
I literally can see him like sitting on an edge of a building drinking a beer, and
Yeah,
it being
that was
like
his
6
night.
stories up.
Yeah.
And they're just not even phasing him. But he literally is like, you know, and he's referencing back the angel that I pulled up first thing. He's referencing back that is a powerful message for you. So you really need to remember your inner beauty matches your outer beauty. And that is going to be something that will take you a long way, and not in, and you need to remember that, because when you doubt your ability and your skills of what you're doing inside, you need to remember it is valid. Does that make sense how I'm saying this?
Yeah, like I'm starting to understand that a lot of people are not like me. And even in this world of like psychics and tarot readers, they're not the same either. Like,
Yeah, you have a bigger heart than a lot of them. Your heart is very, very generous. And also, don't be afraid to take money. I don't know if you've got a thing about doing this for money yet, but
yeah.
don't be afraid to take money. It's okay. You know, you have to be worth that. It's not like you got to start out at $100 an hour. Start out at what you feel comfortable with, but don't be afraid to take that money, because it's very important for you to do the exchange. When I first started, I'm a big, huge Starbucks fan. Sorry if you're not, but I would go to meet at coffee shops and I'd say, buy me a cup of coffee. We need to have an exchange of energy so that we all walk away from this feeling energetically good. So don't be afraid to take money. Obviously, friends and family and stuff like that, there's an equal relationship there, so that's different. But once you start stepping into this, you know, honor who you are, because that money is an exchange of energy, because that's our life. You know, it's unfortunately that's how we work in this. But remember the inner beauty, the outer beauty, and trust your abilities. All right.
That's another thing. And then can I just ask you a really quick question? You said that you have like a background in a small town, and right now I live in like the Bible Belt of West Virginia. I got ran out of one town for being a witch just because they saw my cards. So yeah, so meeting up, we do have a Starbucks, but like if I pulled out the cards there, like is there a way to get your feet wet like online? Is there like any?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of the apps and things like that you could like step into and start working with.
Okay.
Private message me and I'll tell you what they are. And if anybody else wants to know, I'll tell you what they are. I just won't put them out there for everybody. But private message me if you want to know what those apps are that can get your feet wet. But more importantly, here's what I want to say to you.
Okay.
Your energy is still a little fearful.
I am.
Your energy is still a little doubting. So you're going to get, quote, run out. You're going to get people coming at you, wondering why you have cards on the table, until you change your energy and belief that what you're doing is honest and real and valid. And then those people won't even see you. They won't even see your cards. Because when I stopped worrying about and caring what people thought of me, they did not even see me. And the reason I know this, because I'm a moderate amount of online presence. I mean, there are people who have a lot more followers and things like that, but I've been around for a couple of years and I built up. The reason I say that is because I don't get trolls. I don't get people, you know, yelling at me, screaming at me, you know, asking who the hell do you think you are? I just don't get that. Because first of all, I don't have time for them, you know? But second, I don't draw that energy in. So when I'm looking at other people's sites, and if I start having those feelings of who do they think they are? I can't believe they're doing that. I check myself and wonder where my fear is. Because I know if I start pointing my finger at other people online, that energy, I'm going to attract it back to myself. And a lot of my friends will bitch and complain in private chat groups about their clients and things like that. And I get it. I understand it. But I also know that I don't, that's not in my energy.
It feeds into it, and it actually brings it more upon you. Absolutely.
Yeah. But, and some of them, they love to fight because they believe they need to, they're still trying to convince themselves that what they do is valid and what they need to do. So that's something that will help you. And I tell you, here's a funny story. at one of my Starbucks, I was sitting there with Mary Kay Greer's book, 21 Ways to Read the Tarot, preparing for my meetup. And this guy walked up, and he's a young guy, and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Oh, sure." He goes, "Is that a tarot book?" He go, "Yeah." I go, "Oh, yeah, I have a meetup and I'm about to do this and that." He's like, "You just don't see many people sitting at a Starbucks with a tarot book on the table." He's like, "That's really interesting. That's actually kind of cool." And I said, "Well, thanks." I said, "If you ever want to come to the meetup, you can find it online." He goes, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate that." And he just walked away. And I thought, well, that was neat. And then like 2 weeks ago, this older gentleman who intuitively, I bet you he was a retired minister. I could just feel his kind of conservative nature. And I put my tarot book away and I started reading my Ho'oponopono book on the ancient Hawaiian tradition of forgiveness. And he walks up and he says, just randomly getting in my business. And he walks up to my table, had to come all the way across the room. And he's like, "Oh, what you reading today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm reading about ancient Chinese Hawaiian forgiveness thing." He goes, "Oh, we could use a little bit more of that." And then I said, "And I'm also reading about tarot." And I pulled the book out and put it in his face. And he goes, "Well, that's interesting. You have a good day." And he walked away.
Well,
and I thought to myself, I could have let my fear build up, and it could have created a conflict, and he could have come at me a little bit more. But I just proudly held it up. I said, because I had to pull it out of my bag. Because he said, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "I'm reading this and I'm reading this book." But I literally I felt so comfortable. And it took me a long time, Ileana, I know what it's like. I'll never forget sitting in another Starbucks 8 years ago, reading a book about crystals. And this woman sat down and I went, oh, I could feel her conservative Christian energy coming at me. And she goes, "What are you reading?" I said, "A book about crystals." And she goes, "Well, the Bible says," and I just went, "Oh, here we go." And she said something, I said, "Well, for me, I like to go with Proverbs 3:5-6, which says, 'Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths.'" And she goes, oh, okay. Well, I see you know the Bible, don't you?" And she walked away. And I do know the Bible.
Mitch, one of my secret weapons is that I was brought up by Jesuits, so I can actually quote the Bible back at them, and it drives them nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I start going Leviticus, Deuteronomy, 12, they go, "What? You know my secret weapon?"
Yep. So Ileana, once you start to find your belief in yourself, you're not going to find those people even in your business anymore.
Exactly.
But I also do recommend to a lot of people to connect online, but then finally get that family and connection around town and stuff like that, and you'll eventually be fine. But I know what it's like,
I would say baby steps, take it careful, don't immediately trust people. I mean, you don't want to be paranoid, but you want to let people reveal themselves to you and earn your trust. Okay, especially in areas where they have that kind of element, because again, you don't want to end up getting persecuted or threatened. In another life when I was very young, I did voter registration in the South during the 60s.
Wow.
So I know all about this stuff. A little Catholic Jesuit from a Jesuit high school in summer vacation.
They've actually just banned tarot reading, like in the next, across the Virginia line right here in Richland, because their shop was offering free tarot reading, and then they said the police shut them down because they said they didn't have zoning. It's just really
well. Again, you just have to you pick. You're not on a crusade. You're there to participate in life. What I do a lot of volunteer work. And when you do volunteer work, you'll start finding the people who are you'll meet lots and lots of people, and you'll start to see different types of people, and you'll be able to pick up on energy, and you'll be much, shall I say, you'll find your tribe. They're there, and there are good people who aren't bigots, and again, who aren't crazy, and who are tolerant. And again, remember, in West Virginia, there's a whole tradition of healers and backwoods healers and stuff like that. There's a whole tradition of that, which goes back to the 16th century, and I forgot the vernacular name for it, but it's an old, it's a, during the
They call 'em
colonial
granny
time. I
witches.
beg your pardon?
They call them granny witches.
Right,
They're
granny,
not.
but there's another
They're,
word for it. But again, there's a whole tradition of native healing type stuff,
there
and it's
is,
usually
yeah.
women, okay, but it's usually herbal, some form of herbalism, okay,
Mhm.
herbal remedies, home remedies, but knowledge and some kind of shamanism, and they've been there parallel to the Christians for since West Virginia's, for 200, 300 years, and they've managed to survive, so there is that tradition in the mountains.
Wow.
That's
Um,
awesome. Well, Mitch, you did an awesome job with Ileana. I want to
Thank
thank
you.
you because
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
you're brilliant. I'm totally, like I said, I'm so glad I had you on. And let's see here, we're getting on for the top of the hour. Is anybody else who has a question for Mitch, or just again, I don't want to stretch Mitch too far, but anybody else have a question for Mitch? A quick one?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Katie.
How do you handle someone who is saying no when you're channeling and pulling cards and you wholeheartedly believe that you're seeing someone or have predictions for them and they just are in complete denial?
Yeah. I often will say, one of my pat answers is just write that down. Hold that for later. I literally will say, save that for later, make a note of that. And a lot of times they'll come back and say, okay, I had what do they call it? The psychic amnesia, because they're in that moment of fear. I can't believe I'm sitting in front of a psychic. And then the challenge for me in the beginning was still trusting myself that what I'm seeing was real. And I used to have a mantra that everything is right now. We just don't know how it fits in or how it's translating to this person. But I will, especially when, just like you said, when you know what you know, I will say, you know what, this may not be making sense to both of us right now, but I want you to write this down, make a mental note of this, and you let me know if this ever falls into place, because I really feel strongly about this. And then I also may say, what I'm getting might be, and we talked about metaphor early, what I'm getting might simply be a metaphor for you of a direction you need to go, or what changes might be coming down the road for you. So metaphor is powerful too, especially in the hypnotherapy work.
Excellent answer. And you can't
that
force it on somebody, and it may, and if you do force it, it may spoil it because they may not be ready, but maybe 5 years from now they'll be ready and they'll remember what you said, and they go, "Oh, Mitch told me that 5 years ago. Oh yeah, now I get it." Really, people are like that.
And I don't know. I used to, when I was in therapy years ago, trying to figure out who I was and why I was the way I was. I remember looking to the therapist several times to say, "Am I just a cold, callous son of a bitch?" Because I didn't feel like I missed people. I mean, I have love and compassion and all that stuff, but there were times where I was just like, you know what? If they can't handle that, that's their problem. So as I became a psychic and medium and tarot card reader, just like Katie was asking, what do you do when you know what you feel is right and true? I got no problem saying, here's what I see. If you're not sure about that, that's okay. I move on. And this is what I think has helped me also. When a client walks away from me or when I shut the computer down, I'm done with them. I don't think about them. Maybe 2, 3, 4 times in 8 years did I take a client with me to bed, meaning I'm still thinking about them as I went to bed. And it was one of those where it was a couple came to my house. Literally, their daughter was murdered. They had a grandchild that died last week. It's like they had like all this death around them. And I remember just laying in bed thinking, like starting to analyze everything I did and all that they went through. And I remember going, stop. And I released them. So it's helped me to not let people's energy linger and hang around me, which is what a lot of psychic and mediums get sick from, because they're taking on people's stuff and they don't let it go. I deliver a message without expectation and let it go. And like I said, I think that's part of my makeup. So thank you for being made up that way, so I don't have to worry about it or take on other people's crap. But yeah. So I hope that helps.
Mitch, you've been absolutely amazing. This is one of our best broadcasts. I want to thank you what you brought
Thank
to it.
you.
And
Oh.
again, everybody on Facebook, please, if you want to send a private message or check in with Mitch, just put your comments in, or you can see his website in the event page below. We are meeting here 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I hope Mitch will come back soon. I also hope Mitch will let us know when he's coming back up north. If you're heading back up to the Reader's Studio or to the Amiga Center, because this is part of my home crew, actually. You're my home turf. So let us know, if you're heading back north again,
Yeah,
And
I'll be at Reader Studio at the end of April, like the first day of May next year.
awesome. Well, that's brilliant. Well, I want to thank you for an awesome little broadcast. And again, I look forward to seeing you, hearing from you again soon. Okay. And guys, everybody, let's all give them a little applaud and a thank you.
Thank you. I'll come
Thank
back
you.
anytime. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.